Hello and welcome to the Community Foundation for Ireland's presentation on the Women's Fund 2018. For the purposes of this presentation, I will introduce the work of the Community Foundation and will provide an overview of our grant-making priorities for this year, first in relation to the Women's Fund and then our other available funding schemes. I will then provide some tips for making a strong application and explain the process that follows if your application is successful. The Community Foundation for Ireland was established in 2000 and it aims to support community-based initiatives that promote community development, social inclusion and equality at a local and national level. To date, we have given out €37.5 million in cumulative grant making since 2000. Some of the areas we have focused our funding on are older people, women, LGBTQI, mental health and youth. Historically at the Community Foundation, we gave out small grassroots grants, but in recent years we have opted for a more strategic approach to grant making that involves larger grant amounts, more focused projects and a shared vision towards greater social change. With these larger grants, we look at, in particular at the level of impact a programme, project or set of activities can have, and more specifically, we like to see applications that demonstrate pilot programmes that could be scalable. In addition to seeking more strategic and impactful applications, we look for programmes of work that are collaborative and evaluative for all of our grant schemes. We host learning network events that bring together all of our grantees from a particular round to encourage the sharing of knowledge, to promote further collaboration among like-minded groups, and to help grantees to develop their support networks. One of our key grant-making priorities is done around the area of women. Established by the Community Foundation for Ireland in 2010, the Women's Fund for Ireland is a long-term philanthropic fund. Its mission is to encourage philanthropy among women, to improve the lives of women and girls through social change grant making, and to educate the entire community about the benefits to wider society when the potential of women is realised. The Women's Fund 2018 is now open, and this year we are seeking applications from non-profit organisations to find out what work is taking place in Ireland in the area of combating or highlighting sexual harassment and what needs to happen to bring about real change in this area. We are offering grants of up to €5,000 to organisations who are undertaking new work that aims to centre stage this phenomenon and instigate changes in standards, behaviours and attitudes in the sphere. So if you are part of a formal or informal group or network that is involved in research, awareness raising, advocacy, activism or other activities that aim to bring about this kind of social and cultural change, we are interested in hearing from you. The closing date for applications is the 30th of April and you can access the full criteria and application form on our website www.communityfoundation.ie. For further information about this scheme, please contact Sara Stokes at sstokes@foundation.ie. Along with the Women's Fund in 2018, we will also be running our Older Persons Fund, which will focus on active citizenship and advocacy. The scheme is offering grants of up to €7,500 and will run until the 12th of April. Later in the year, we will also be running our social change grants. This year, these grants will focus specifically on the area of mental health under 3 distinct strands: travellers' mental health and domestic violence, and mental health as it pertains to refugees and immigrants. This scheme will open in August 2018, at which point a full detailed criteria document will be made available for each of the strands on our website. In order to keep up to date in relation to all of our upcoming events and grant rounds, please sign up to our community newsletter through the homepage of the site. When applying to any of our grant schemes, the following general criteria apply. Ensure that your project serves an identifiable need. Include clear, detailed, realistic costs and timescales. Demonstrate that the project will work with the target community outlined in the criteria. Ensure that the work is not internal to your organisation but has a wider community reach. Demonstrate that your project will have a wider impact within the sector. Priority is given to applications that create a model of working that will provide learning opportunities or models of best practice for other groups. Remember that only one application per scheme can be submitted by any organisation. Applicants must be established non-profit organisations with their own bank account. For all schemes, we require a recent copy of the applicant organisation's bank statement to verify their account. We encourage all applicant organisations to sign up to the Governance Code, to register with the Charities Regulatory Authority, and to ensure that they meet best practice in terms of governance and transparency. For the Women's Fund 2018, if you are part of a more informal network or group, please contact Sara Stokes at sstokes@foundation.ie for further details of how you may get involved in the scheme. Applicant organisations must comply with the annual accounting requirements set out by the Charity Regulatory Authority. As you will see from the slide, these requirements are based on the income level of the organisation and fall into 3 distinct bands. Band A pertains to organisations with an income of less than €10,000. Band B pertains to organisations with an income of between €10,001 and €100,000. And Band C pertains to organisations with an income of over €100,000. Further details of these requirements are available on the CRA website. When you are completing your online application form, you will be asked for the following: a brief description of the work and mission of your organisation, a summary of your project followed by a more detailed description, an explanation of why this project is needed and how that need was identified, and an explanation of how the beneficiaries of this project were identified and how they are disadvantaged or affected directly by the social issue that the project aims to tackle. You will also be asked what the projected outcomes of your project will be and how its impact will be measured. What happens after funding ends, i.e. will the project continue or is this a piece of once-off work? And will you be working in collaboration with other organisations over the course of the project? The budget section is often the one that most people have questions about. When completing this section of the form, we would advise applicants to be careful what they ask for. If you're unsure, reread the criteria to ensure that the costs you are listing are covered under the grant scheme. Be honest and realistic about your costs. Don't over or underestimate the associated project spend because it may lead to an inability to complete the project successfully. Mind the gap. If the amount you request from us is less than the total project cost, please ensure that you can fill this gap with other sources of funding or income. Please note that we never fund core costs and only costs directly associated with your project will be considered by our grants assessors. Finally, be clear and concise in terms of your budget and timeline. Once your application has successfully been submitted, it goes through several layers of assessment before a final decision can be reached. First, it will go through an initial screening to ensure that it is eligible and that all relevant material has been submitted. Next, it is reviewed internally to determine whether or not the project is suitable and relevant to the scheme's criteria and objectives. The application is then sent to our expert grants panel, made up of experts from the charity and voluntary sector who assess and discuss each application individually. Their recommendations are then sent to the board of the Community Foundation for decision and final ratification. But what do our assessors look for in a successful application? They need to see that it has come from a non-profit organisation whose annual income does not exceed the maximum outlined in the criteria, that only one application has been submitted by each organisation, that there's a clear and demonstrable need for your project, that the project activities and outcomes are clearly broken down and can be easily measured in terms of their impact. Ideally, that there is a collaborative element to the work where possible, and that the timeline and budget are clear and realistic and do not cover core or ongoing costs or activities. Some common mistakes made by applicants include not reading the criteria to ensure their project is suitable, the project activities are not clearly described, the timing of the project is not aligned with the timing of the grant, the costs don't add up, or there is a gap in funding that cannot be accounted for. Answers to questions are left blank or boxes are left unticked. The application is difficult to read or understand due to grammatical errors. More than the maximum grant amount has been requested. The deadline has been missed. No applications can be accepted after the published deadline. And finally, check your application. Anybody can make mistakes, and it can be helpful in some cases to have a second person read through your application before submission. A successful grant application will demonstrate clear and significant needs, a clear connection to the funding criteria and objectives, a clear connection to the organisation's strategic plan and mission, firm leadership support, a strong plan to address needs, evidence of the organisation's capacity to deliver, a justifiable evaluation plan, and as previously outlined, a sufficient and necessary budget. So what happens if your application is successful? Depending on the grant scheme you have been awarded under, there will be a number of reporting requirements. Under older persons and social change mental health grants, you will be expected to submit a project plan at the very beginning of the grant cycle. Under older persons, social change and the Women's Fund, you will be asked to submit an interim report 6 months into the project outlining progress to date and a final outcome report after 12 months detailing the outcomes of the project and its impacts. All grant recipients from these 3 funding programs will be asked to attend Learning Network events. In the case of the Women's Fund, this will be a shared learning session at the end of the 12-month grant cycle. And in the case of the other 2 funds, there will be an event just before your project begins and a follow-up event once work has been completed. The Community Foundation will also carry out site visits with a number of funded projects over the course of the year. Now all that's left is for you to make your application. Please note that the following dates are for your diary. The Older Persons Fund opened on the 5th of March and will close on the 12th of April. The Women's Fund opened on the 26th of March and will close on the 30th of April. And our Social Change Mental Health Scheme will open in August and close in September, with exact dates to be confirmed on our website shortly. I hope you found this presentation helpful, but if you have any queries, please don't hesitate to contact a member of the Grants and Donor Services team at the Community Foundation for Ireland.